the disobedient daughter who married a skull. In the heart of the ancient village of Umuofia, nestled between the whispering palms and the sacred Iroko trees, there lived a girl whose beauty was as radiant as the sun and whose heart was as stubborn as the roots of the baobab. Her name was Adaku. And her story was one that would echo through generations. A tale of defiance, enchantment, and the bitter lessons learned when one turns away from wisdom. In Umuofia, where the spirits of the ancestors watched over the living, a single choice could unravel destinies or bind them to fates darker than the deepest night. And so begins the story of Adaku, the disobedient daughter who dared to marry a skull. The village of Umuofia was a place where the earth pulsed with life. The marketplace buzzed with the chatter of traders selling yams, kola nuts, and brightly woven cloths dyed in indigo and ochre. The air was thick with the scent of roasted plantains and the rhythmic beat of talking drums, calling the people to gatherings or warning of unseen dangers. The elders, with their graying hair and eyes that held the wisdom of ages, sat under the shade of the great Iroko tree, settling disputes and sharing stories of the gods, Echoku, the supreme creator, and Ola, the earth goddess who guarded the land. Adaku, the only daughter of Motsi Okoro and his wife Neka, was the pride of Umuofia. Her skin glowed like polished ebony, and her eyes sparkled like the stars that lit the night sky. Her laughter was a melody that drew young men from neighboring villages, each hoping to win her hand. But Adaku was not only beautiful. She was fiercely independent, with a spirit that refused to bend to anyone's will, not even her parents. Adaku, my child, her mother Neka would say, her voice soft but firm, a woman's strength is in her wisdom, not her stubbornness. Listen to your elders, for they see what you cannot. Adaku would toss her head, her beaded braids clinking like tiny bells. I am no child, Mama. I know my heart, and I will follow it. Her father, Motsi Okoro, a respected farmer and member of the village council, was less patient. Adaku, obedience is the rope that ties a family to harmony. Defy us, and you will unravel the cord that holds us together. But Adaku paid no heed. She believed her beauty and charm gave her the right to choose her path, no matter what the elders said. The villagers whispered about her, some with admiration, others with concern. That girl is a fire, they said. She will either light the world or burn herself to ashes. As Adaku grew into her 18th year, suitors came from far and wide, bringing gifts of goats, yams, and fine cloths. There was Chaik, the brave hunter who had slain a leopard with his bare hands, Obina, the wealthy trader whose caravans stretched across the savannah, and Kolechi, the poet whose words could make the heart weep. But Adaku rejected them all, finding fault in each. Chaik was too proud, Obina too greedy, Kolechi too soft. Her parents grew weary, for they knew that a woman of marriageable age must choose wisely, lest she bring shame to her family. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the village gathered for the festival of the New Yam, a stranger appeared at the edge of Umuofia. He was tall and regal, his features sharp and handsome, his robes woven with threads that shimmered like moonlight on the river. His name, he said, was Ezego, and he had come from a distant land to seek a bride. The villagers were enchanted by his charm, his voice smooth as honey, his smile disarming. But there was something about him, a flicker in his eyes, a shadow that clung to him despite the firelight, that made the elders uneasy. Ezego approached Motsi Okoro's compound with a retinue of attendants carrying baskets of kola nuts, jars of palm wine, and a magnificent cow with horns that gleamed like polished ivory. He bowed low before the family, his words dripping with respect. Great Motsi Okoro, wise Neka, I am Ezego, son of the wind and heir to the stars. I have traveled through 7 rivers and 7 forests to seek the hand of your daughter, Adaku, whose beauty is known even in the lands beyond the mountains. The villagers gasped, for such a grand introduction was rare. Motsi Okoro stroked his chin, his eyes narrowing. Ezego, your words are sweet, but we know nothing of you. From whence do you come, and what is your lineage? Ezego smiled, his teeth gleaming. My home is a place of wonders, where the rivers sing and the trees bow to those who walk with honor. My lineage is ancient, blessed by the spirits themselves. I seek only to make Adaku my queen and to shower her with riches beyond your dreams. Adaku, standing at the edge of the compound, felt her heart stir. Ezego was unlike any suitor she had met. His presence was magnetic, his promises intoxicating. She stepped forward, ignoring her mother's warning glance. Father, mother, I wish to know more of this man. He speaks of wonders, and I believe him. Nneka clutched her husband's arm. Adaku, do not be hasty. We must consult the oracle. This man is a stranger, and the spirits must guide us. But Adaku's eyes were fixed on Ezego, her heart already swayed. I am no child to be led by oracles. I will decide for myself. Motsi Okoro's face darkened. Adaku, you will obey us in this matter. The oracle of Ola speaks for the ancestors, and we will not defy their wisdom. The village priestess, Nwani Mma, was summoned. She was an ancient woman, her face lined like the bark of an old tree, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. She carried a staff adorned with cowrie shells and feathers, and her presence commanded silence. She burned herbs and cast bones, chanting to the spirits. When she spoke, her voice was low and grave. This man, Ezego, is not what he seems. The spirits whisper of shadows and secrets. Adaku, aid your parents. This path is fraught with danger. Adaku laughed, a sound that cut through the solemn air. Old woman, your bones are dusty, and your spirits are blind. I see a man of wealth and charm. I will marry Ezego. The villagers murmured, shocked by her defiance. Nneka wept, and Motsi Okoro's hands trembled with anger. But Adaku was resolute. Against her parents' wishes, she accepted Ezego's proposal, and preparations for the marriage began. The wedding was a spectacle, though it lacked the joy of traditional unions. The villagers attended out of duty, but the air was heavy with unease. Ezego's attendants danced and sang, their voices strangely hollow, their movements too precise, as if guided by an unseen force. Adaku, adorned in a wrapper of gold and coral beads, glowed with pride, blind to the warnings around her. When the time came for the bride to leave with her husband, Ezego announced that they would journey to his homeland, a place he called the land of the singing rivers. It is a paradise, he said, where Adaku will live as a queen. Nneka clung to her daughter, tears streaming down her face. Adaku, my heart, do not go. The spirits have spoken. Stay with us. But Adaku pulled away. I am no longer yours to command, mother. I am Ezego's wife, and I will follow him. Motsi Okoro's voice was cold. If you live with this man against our will, you will bear the consequences alone. The ancestors will not protect a disobedient child. Adaku turned her back on her parents and took Ezego's hand. The villagers watched as the couple departed, followed by Ezego's strange attendants, their figures fading into the mist that hung over the forest. The journey was long and arduous, through dense jungles where the trees seemed to whisper warnings and across rivers that roared like angry spirits. Adaku, at first, was filled with excitement, her heart buoyed by Ezego's promises. But as the days passed, she noticed peculiarities. Ezego never ate in her presence, and his attendants spoke in riddles. At night, when they camped, she heard strange noises, low moans, like the wind through hollow bones. One evening, as they rested by a riverbank, Adaku confronted her husband. Ezego, why do your attendants avoid me? Why do you never eat with me? What is this place we are going to? Ezego's smile was as smooth as ever. My love, you are weary from the journey. My land is near, and all will be revealed. Trust in me. But Adaku's unease grew. She began to dream of her parents, their faces etched with sorrow, and of Nwani Ememe's warning. Yet her pride would not let her turn back. She had chosen this path, and she would see it through. After 7 days and 7 nights, they arrived at the land of the singing rivers. But it was no paradise. The air was thick with a strange, metallic scent, and the rivers did not sing, they wailed, their waters dark and turbulent. The trees were bare, their branches twisted like skeletal fingers reaching for the sky. The village, if it could be called that, was a cluster of huts made of bone and stone, their roofs thatched with what looked like human hair. Adaku's heart pounded. Ezego, where is the paradise you promised? This place is dead. Ezego turned to her, and for the first time, his smile faltered. His eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and his voice was no longer honeyed but cold as the grave. Welcome to my home, Adaku. Here, you will be my queen, forever. Before she could react, his attendants seized her, their hands cold and hard as stone. They led her to a great hall, its walls lined with skulls that seemed to watch her with empty eyes. At the center of the hall stood a throne, and on it sat Ezego, or what was left of him. His handsome form melted away, revealing a grinning skull, its eye sockets glowing with a malevolent light. The attendants, too, transformed, their bodies dissolving into skeletal figures draped in tattered robes. Adaku screamed, her voice echoing in the hollow hall. What are you? What is this place? The skull that was Ezego laughed, a sound like bones rattling. I am a spirit of the forgotten, a skull who borrowed flesh to walk among the living. I sought a bride to join me in my realm, and you, Adaku, with your beauty and your defiance, were perfect. You defied the wisdom of your elders, and now you are mine. Adaku's knees buckled, but she refused to cower. You tricked me. I will not stay here. The skull's laughter grew louder. You cannot leave. This is the land of shadows, where the disobedient are bound. You chose me over your family, over the ancestors' wisdom. Now you will serve me for eternity. The skeletal attendants dragged Adaku to a chamber deep within the hall, where chains of bone bound her wrist. She wept, her heart heavy with regret. She thought of her parents, their warnings unheeded, and of Nwani Ememe's prophecy. Her disobedience had led her to this nightmare, and now she was trapped in a world of death and despair. Days turned to weeks, though time seemed meaningless in the land of shadows. Adaku was forced to serve the skull, tending to his grim court of spirits and skeletons. The skulls on the walls whispered to her, their voices filled with sorrow. They were others who had been lured to this place, men and women who had defied their elders, ignored the spirits, or sought forbidden paths. Each told a tale of regret, and Adaku's heart grew heavier with each story. But Adaku was not one to surrender. Her spirit, though bruised, was unbroken. She began to observe the land of shadows, searching for a way to escape. She noticed that the skull's power waned under the light of the full moon, when the rivers grew silent and the shadows retreated. She also discovered a small, hidden shrine in the forest, covered in vines and guarded by a single, glowing firefly. The shrine bore the symbol of Ola, the earth goddess, and Adaku felt a spark of hope. One night, under the full moon, Adaku slipped away from the hall, her chains loosened by the skull's weakened magic. She ran to the shrine, falling to her knees and crying out to Ola, a great mother, I have been a fool. I defied my parents, ignored the wisdom of the ancestors, and now I am trapped. If you can hear me, forgive my disobedience and guide me home. The firefly hovered before her, its light growing brighter until it transformed into a radiant figure, a woman with eyes like the earth and a voice like the wind. It was Ola herself. Adaku, she said, your heart is heavy with regret, but your spirit is strong. The path to redemption is not easy, but I will grant you a chance. You must face the skull and break his power, but you cannot do it alone. Seek the wisdom you rejected, and let it guide you. Allah gave Adaku a small amulet, a stone carved with the symbol of the sun. This will protect you, but only if your heart is true. Return to Umuofia, seek your parents' forgiveness, and ask Noni MMA to summon the ancestors. Only their power can defeat the skull. Adaku clutched the amulet, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Great Mother. I will not fail you. The journey back to Umuofia was perilous. The skull's attendants pursued her, their bony hands reaching through the shadows. But the amulet glowed with Allah's light, driving them back. Adaku ran through the forest, her heart pounding, her mind filled with memories of her parents' love and her own stubbornness. She crossed rivers and climbed hills, guided by the stars and the faint pull of home. When she reached Umuofia, the village was in mourning. Her parents, believing her lost, had grown frail with grief. The villagers, seeing her return, were stunned. Adaku lives, they cried, but their joy was tempered by fear, for she bore the marks of the land of shadows, her eyes haunted, her once vibrant wrapper torn and faded. She fell at her parents' feet, weeping. Father, Mother, I have wronged you. I defied your wisdom and married a monster. Please, forgive me and help me undo my mistake. Motsi Okoro's stern face softened, and Neka embraced her daughter, tears mingling with hers. My child, you have returned to us. The ancestors have not forsaken you. They summoned Noni MMA, who listened to Adaku's tale with a grave expression. The skull is a powerful spirit, one who preys on the disobedient. But with the ancestors' help, we can banish him. The village prepared for a great ritual. The elders gathered under the iroko tree, the drums beat a solemn rhythm, and Noni MMA called upon the ancestors. Adaku stood at the center, the amulet glowing in her hand. As the ritual reached its peak, the air grew cold, and the skull appeared, his skeletal form towering over the village, his eye sockets blazing with fury. You cannot escape me, Adaku, he roared. You are mine. But Adaku, boasted by her parents' forgiveness and Allah's amulet, stood firm. I was wrong to defy my elders, but I am no longer yours. The ancestors stand with me, and their power is greater than yours. Noni MMA raised her staff, and the ancestor spirits rose from the earth, their forms shimmering like moonlight. They surrounded the skull, their voices a chorus of judgment. The skull screamed as the amulet's light burned brighter, weakening its magic. With a final chant, Noni MMA drove her staff into the ground, and the earth split open, swallowing the skull and his attendants in a blaze of light. The village was silent, the air cleansed of the skull's malevolence. Adaku fell to her knees, exhausted but free. Adaku's return was celebrated with a feast, but she was no longer the proud, defiant girl she had been. She had learned the cost of disobedience and the value of wisdom. She vowed to honor her parents and the ancestors, to listen to the elders, and to guide others away from the path she had taken. The villagers, too, learned from her story. Parents told their children of Adaku's ordeal, warning them to heed the wisdom of those who came before. The tale of the disobedient daughter who married a skull became a legend, a reminder that defiance without wisdom leads to ruin, but redemption is possible for those who seek forgiveness. Adaku lived out her days in Umuofia, marrying a kind man named Uche, who valued her strength and her newfound humility. Together, they raised children who grew up hearing the story of their mother's journey, a tale that taught them to respect the bonds of family and the guidance of the spirits. And so, dear viewers, the tale of Adaku, the disobedient daughter who married a skull, comes to an end. But its lesson lives on. In a world where voices clamor for your attention, where pride and stubbornness can lead you astray, remember the wisdom of those who came before you. Listen to your elders, honor your family, and seek the guidance of the divine. For in obedience lies strength, and in humility lies redemption. Go forth and share this story, that others may learn from Adaku's mistake and choose the path of wisdom over the allure of false promises. Will you heed the call, or will you, like Adaku, risk all for the whispers of a stranger?